Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. This is a stream today of Bahamut Lagoon, Japanese RPG strategy title by Square Enix that was released way back on the Super Nintendo. I'm playing it today for the latest column edition of the Late to the Party column, which is part of my Astrolabe newsletter, which you can see right up there. You can sign up for it at aiden.substack.com. Late to the Party is a regular column where I play old video games, often ones I've never played before, sometimes ones I've played but not for a long time, or sometimes I revisit the classics. And today we're looking at a game that I've never played outside of the first 10 minutes a couple of times, but that has been sort of part of my Japanese RPG pantheon and upbringing ever since the earliest days, way back when, as I was just getting into Final Fantasy-VI and Chrono Trigger. I spent so much time kind of looking at gaming mags, and especially ones that focused on Japanese games. I needed more, like the games, the Japanese RPGs I'd been playing and obsessed with. And Bahamut Lagoon really stuck out in the back pages of like Game Fan magazine, because as you're gonna see, it bears like a kind of striking resemblance to Final Fantasy VI in a lot of ways, in its UI and also in its background design, its aesthetic. And that really drew me to this idea of this game that looked like a game I loved. The only problem was it never came out in North America. It never received an official release. Over the years, there's been several fan translations, including one way back in about 2001, 2002, by DJAP, which is a fairly well-known fan translation team who worked on a ton of stuff. And among the people who worked on the original Bahamut Lagoon fan translation were like Clyde Mandelin, who's well known for his work on Mother 3, Neil Corlett, who did the original Seiken Densetsu 3, Trials of Mana fan translation a long time ago, and they did Bahamut Lagoon. The thing is, though, is that they were at that point still kind of early in their careers as fan translators, and it was a really valiant attempt and impressive at the time, but the scene and the technology and our understanding of how to localize games has come a long way in the last 25 years, and so this latest fan translation is by a software developer named Nier, who's well known, probably best known for creating BSNES and Higan, which are two Super Nintendo emulators that focus on they focus on a whole lot of things. Higan is like very focused on accuracy, 100% accuracy. BSNES is a little less concerned with accuracy, but a little more kind of usable for casual players. But Nier has also worked on fan translations over the years, and like going way back to the first release of Bahamut Lagoon, Nier, a lot like me, saw the game in the back of old gaming magazines, but instead of just pining over it, he actually took it upon himself to, try to do a fan translation. And over the years, he's started and stopped and completed several different attempts, but none he was entirely happy with until now. And so to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the game, he went back, starting last fall, working with a translator to create what he considers to be like a perfect localization of Bahamut Lagoon. And so just recently I caught up with Nier to chat about his career and Bahamut Lagoon and what it means to kind of chase after a game for 25 years and finally kind of like reach perfection, what you consider perfection. He's a fascinating guy. He's really well spoken and has so much interesting insight into the kind of not just the technological aspects of fan localization and emulation, but also just like how to approach a project like this. You can read it here on Input. I posted a link in chat. It was a really great read. I hope you guys all enjoy reading it as much as I enjoyed writing it with Nier. And now we're going to get started on Bahamut Lagoon. Andrew, yeah, $160 for an import cart of Bahamut Lagoon. That's spicy. That's spicy. One of the kind of saving graces of Japanese RPGs is most of the import carts are pretty cheap compared to the US counterparts. I've got a bunch of not a bunch, but a few Dragon Quest V. I've got Trials of Mana. You can pick them up for a fraction of what the English prices cost. Oh, okay, yeah, you're going all the way back to $160 for an import cart in the 90s. Yeah, right, to actually import it at that time. Yeah, I was 12 or whatever, 13, and that was just way out of my price range. So I had to just look at the pictures and wish one day. Michael, the fan translation scene, I've always been sort of aware of it, and I've played fan translations over the years, but over the past several months, as I've kind of gotten deeper into playing fan translations, but also connecting with the people in the scene and reading more about their experiences, the work that they put into these games, the fan translation scene is incredible. Seeing people like Nier put this level of effort into a game that from what I've played, I've played about 15 minutes of this translation so far, and you wouldn't and couldn't expect even an official release from Square Enix to match kind of the level of care that Nier has put into this. One of them you can see on the screen right now. He actually created a brand new variable width font for the game, just to make it look kind of high end. And he described it to me almost as it looks like a PlayStation font. And it really does. It's just so clean. It's just you don't see a lot of that level of effort. I did admire what Square Enix did to the Trials of Mana official release. Finally, they gave that a really good translation, and they did it the right way. You can play that game just on an actual SNES if you have the ROM and a SD to SNES cart. And so there are good examples of some official releases that go out of the way, but I'm really impressed here with what Nier has done. Yeah, Andrew, I think what Nier really brings to the fan translation scene, above and beyond just his dedication, is his incredible depth of knowledge for how the Super Nintendo works. Nier has spent so much time working on these emulators that I doubt there's anyone in the world who understands how the Super Nintendo works as well as he does, especially from an emulation standpoint. And so for him to be able to take all of that knowledge on and then apply it to a fan translation and kind of leverage every ounce of what the Super Nintendo has is pretty amazing. Okay, let's get into the game. So, Truce, we await your signal to make our move, Commander. And already off the bat, you can see there's I would say that the character designs aren't very Final Fantasy. The monster designs are getting there, but just the visuals, the background, the very detailed high-res clouds look really nice. Remind me a lot of Final Fantasy VI. We could be on, the floating continent right now. Okay, a Cross Knight, lover of dragons and commander of Kana's War Dragon Squadron. So this is me here. I think that this is a great visual of the font work that Nier put into the game. You can see that it says finished up in the top right corner, and you just don't see that on the Super Nintendo. So yeah, I can see the Mana series as well. Kind of in the visual inspiration for sure. It looks like a Super Nintendo RPG. They all kind of look like this, which is, appealing to me even now. Yeah, okay, yeah, I see the Sapin, the guy there, right? Who I'm about to talk to. Vicky Bake? Okay. Popular names of dragons, let's see. So Salamander, Pooch, Tanaka, the name of a girl you like. So I think, give the dragon a name. Okay. Salamander, good. And this is Rush. We'll set out to defend Kana's castle. You'll need to choose your dragon's call names before we head into battle. So we have Salamander, we have Ice Dragon, which is, I think, what my 2-year-old would probably name a dragon. This will be our final battle with the Grand Velos Empire. We can't afford to lose. I doubt it's going to be the last battle. Commander Bu, are you okay with not doing any last-minute checks before we begin our strike? So this is a little tutorial area, I guess. So I can give my dragons commands. That's cool. Okay. So give this dragon a name. So Bahamut Lagoon is a strategy RPG, but it also mixes in a lot of elements from kind of more traditional RPGs. And right off the bat, like if you think of something like Tactics Ogre, which was released around the same time, or Final Fantasy Tactics from a few years later, you don't have any of this like walking around talking to people. All the narrative is just built straight into the, you know, the scenario, cutscenes and the battles and stuff. So that's kind of cool. And then later on, once we get to the battles, you'll also see that it kind of mixes in. It kind of takes Ogre Battle's approach, where you have, you know, grid-based tactical battles like Tactics Ogre, but then when you meet an enemy, you go into this like sub-battle screen. That's really reminiscent of something like Romancy Saga 3 or Final Fantasy 6. We'll see that in a moment. Okay. Okay, so we're going to Kana Castle. Please mount your dragon. Salamander? No, that's Rush. Okay. Yeah, Salamander. Here we go. So the dragons obviously have like elemental attributes. I don't know if that kind of works into the battle system or not, but might just be a little bit of a world building. So this is Kana Castle. It's Princess of Kana with the power to become a Dragnar. She's able to speak with the divine dragons. Yo-yo. One of the things that graphically stands out to me early on in this game is the use of transparency to kind of add flair and texture and depth to the graphics in the world. We'll see a bit more of that coming up as well. But yeah, you know, you can see this kind of cloudy overlay that they have over the scene, which is kind of cool. I really love how kind of like expressive and individualized all the sprite work is. They really stand out. Like if you compare the king who's sitting on the throne, the King Kana, to like Emperor Gastal, they have a very similar character design, but there's just so much more detail in the sprite work here, which I like. Not to say anything bad about Final Fantasy VI's sprite work, but I think we are kind of reaching like a point in the Super Nintendo's lifespan where it's like it's really getting maxed out with what it can do, and we're seeing, you know, like a level of graphical technology that's starting to kind of reach where the PlayStation would then kind of leapfrog from. So Bahamut is the guardian dragon of this kingdom, but they feel like Bahamut is supposed to wake up, but now just isn't, which is never a good sign. Yeah, Andrew, that's like kind of character emotes and like animations as part of like the like communication. It's something that I think Square really got into around this time. Final Fantasy V was really good with it. That's kind of the first place that I remember seeing it, and I like the way that they can kind of take expressive like emotion and bake that into the characters. You can see that they have really large eyes, and I think that can often give a lot of options for expressing different emotions. So the Empire set them up. And we're trying to hold, they want to hold us off at the gates. So this being a Japanese RPG, I would say that it's probably pretty safe to say that there's a lot going there's a lot going on behind the scenes that's going to be revealed over the course of the game. Okay. Inspired, gain 2 experience. So this is the, you know, we're kicking off right into the first battle. Yeah, Andrew, that's an interesting point. The battles have kind of a really rigid square grid, but outside of the battles, it does seem like there's a bit more kind of sway and leeway for placement, which means, you know, you don't get that kind of chessboard feel that something like Tactics Ogre, Final Fantasy Tactics had, Fire Emblem as well, during cutscenes and stuff. Okay, if you want to use, if you want to cross the river, you can use magic to freeze it, and don't forget to shoot commands to your dragons. Okay, that's cool. So I was asking about the, you know, the dragons having elemental attributes earlier, and it looks like there is some, you know, opportunity for dragons to impact the environment using their, you know, fire or ice or whatever. So the cursor is also not grid-based. It has like full 360-degree movement. I believe the actual like, so movement is all grid-based, but I actually like move him around the like the area, which is kind of fun, instead of having like a cursor. Yeah, I know that, like, I feel like we're kind of getting to a point in Square Enix's career, or like their like kind of creative existence, that they're really starting to recognize how they can kind of push the boundaries of game design in terms of, like, you know, having environmental interaction on a Super Nintendo game is pretty cool. You're starting to see a little bit more of that in the PlayStation era, especially in like kind of puzzle heavy Japanese RPGs like Wild Arms, where you're kind of doing some environmental interaction. But it definitely feels really cool in a strategy game like this on the Super Nintendo. So sword skill, fire attack. So this tells me about my party. This is a gorgeous menu screen where I think that Nier's work on having like a true Unitype font really pays off. There's lots of like kind of fake Unitype fonts on the Super Nintendo, and then there's a lot of just monospace all caps fonts, which are awful. But what I think is really impressive is if you look, I'm on item right now, and if you can see, it has like a soft serif font there, but you can see that the T, the crossbar of the T, is actually hanging over into the space occupied by the capital I, which is just like, that's a really nice touch on a font, and just makes this like just the most readable, cleanest Super Nintendo game that I've certainly ever seen. I'd love for Nier just to go back to some classic Japanese RPGs and just improve the font. Like, give me Terra Enigma with a font that looks like this. I'd still want them to redo the translation, but at least it would be more readable. Okay, so this is interesting. The dragons sort of act on their own, so I can kind of give them a little bit of direction, but not a lot of direct control over them. And Salamander just used a fire spell and was able to deal damage to these units right on the battlefield, which is interesting. Because I think when human characters get into battle is when we start seeing the kind of more traditional Final Fantasy based battle system. So I don't know how to freeze this river because I don't seem to have control over the ice dragon. So let's see here. So the game is kind of Fire Emblem-esque in that the player has a turn phase, and then the enemy goes. But yeah, here we go. So this is like, you know, Final Fantasy style isometric battle system. Really nice animations on the enemy sprites, which is cool. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. He might have a spell. Did I get to control him? I thought I didn't get to control him, but maybe I did. Oh, there we go. The enemy used a nice spell and froze the river, so here we are. Excellent. So I can't get... Oh, I see. It's not frozen there. Okay. Let's see. Field. Black magic. Ah, excellent. Thank you. Here we go. I think this should... let's see what happens here. There we go. Did he just... change? Okay. Better watch out for fire magic. So, of course, fire magic could then melt the ice. So you don't want to get caught on that ice bridge if somebody's going to use some fire magic. It's pretty cool. I haven't seen the ability to kind of manipulate the environment in a, you know, this heavily in a strategy RPG of this ilk. So I'm kind of I'm curious to see how far the game actually takes that, and how kind of important over the course of the game that's going to become. Flame hit. The special abilities just do damage right on the battlefield, and I avoid going into those isometric battles. Yeah, okay, that's right, Andrew. It is kind of like Ogre Battle in that way that you build a squad. So that leader in the gold armor must have a black mage on board, and that's who actually casts that spell, I guess. All right. So my 4 characters just leveled up. Okay, so BU is the main character there, and then yeah, so there must be 2 people on that gold, 2 characters on that gold unit. I like this jazzy battle theme. It's great. I was just listening to the Breath of Fire 3 soundtrack, which implements like a lot of jazz, and I was really getting a kick out of that. Because it's fun to have something that's kind of like, you know, atypical of like sort of the usual. I played that wrong. Atypical of the kind of the usual, more classically styled Japanese RPG soundtrack. Yeah, Breath of Fire 3 soundtrack has some jams for sure. It was one of those games, like me and my friends, we were all in Japanese RPGs. We'd share games a lot. And, you know, all had similar tastes, but then every once in a while we'd all sort of like veer off into our own little experiment where we would play some game that nobody else had played or had any interest in playing. And Breath of Fire 3 was that for me, and I spent a ton of time playing it until I got to the desert, which I think anyone who's played Breath of Fire 3 will know the desert. And I just really loved it. I loved the bright colors. I loved the jazzy soundtrack. The time skip where your main character grows up was cool. It was interesting at the time. I haven't played it for years and years. I recently, about a year ago, played Breath of Fire 4 and really liked it. So I'd like to go back to Breath of Fire 3 to check it out again. But regardless, the battles or the soundtrack has stuck with me all these years. Okay, so I'm in battle with a few of my characters now. I'm going to try to take them out. Yeah, Andrew, you're right. We've got this little this unit of different combatants. So like, you know, Ogre Battle, we're probably going to be looking at kind of, you know, trying to build out an army that that utilizes all the different character classes. And this though looks like it was all of my main named characters: Bu, Rush, Bike, Bake, and Truce. So I feel like I missed something there, but did anyone here played Bahamut Lagoon? Either checked out this new fan translation from Nier or one of the older ones. Nier actually completed his own fan translation years ago. But the most popular one was the DJAP one. Has anyone played the DJAP one or played the game in Japanese way back in the day? Yeah, I checked out the older translation way back when, but that was before, you know, emulators were at all a pleasant experience. Before I could hook up a Super Nintendo controller to my computer and stuff. So like, you know, I would check out the intro, and that's about as far as I ever got. All right. Yeah, a couple hours. Yeah, like I said right off the bat, I think that I think a lot of the older fan translations are impressive for what they were at the time, but they've, you know, they've just kind of been surpassed in terms of skill and experience and ambition as well. I played Neil Corlett's Trials of Mana translation a couple of years ago, and it's good, but it shows its age, and I expect the same is true of that Bahamut Lagoon one. Other than that, dragons are cool. I think that's a big part of Bahamut Lagoon, is that it's just like the dragons are cool. And do you need more than that, really, from a, you know, an older strategy RPG? I think the idea that you have all these kind of dragon units kind of sets it apart enough. And otherwise, the mechanics seem, you know, fairly straightforward in terms of the actual battle mechanics and stuff. All right, Michael, thanks for dropping by. I actually have to get back to work myself in about 15 minutes, so I appreciate you taking your lunch break or whatever with me. Can't wait to write about this, and hope you enjoyed your time here. Okay, don't feed your dragon random crap you find like I did and turn it into a horrible bone dragon creature. Okay, so there's like dragon raising, I guess, in the game. That's cool. I'm looking forward to figuring that out. So you feed your dragon. That reminds me of one of the Romancing Saga games on the original Game Boy. Had like monsters that you could feed. It was like Final Fantasy Legend 2 or 3. You could feed monsters you'd get monsters in your party, and then you would feed them stuff. And depending on what you fed them, then there would be various different like transformations and evolution chains. It was super opaque. There was no like guidance for what your monster would turn into, whether it was going to be better or worse or whatever. And so I never really got it. I never really got into that game. I've written at length about how my first introduction to Japanese RPGs was Final Fantasy Legend 2. Or 3, I can't remember which one off the top of my head. And it kind of turned me off the genre for a number of years. So hopefully the dragon raising in Bahamut Lagoon is a little more transparent. Oh yeah, Seven Saga 2, Mystic Arc. Yeah, I played Seven Saga for Late to the Party a couple of weeks ago and was kind of like surprised by how much I liked it. And so I dabbled a little bit in Mystic Arc after that, and it's gorgeous. It looks beautiful. I don't know I don't know much about the overall quality of the game, but it took a lot of what kind of made a dragon. It took a lot of what made Seventh Saga interesting and like doubled down on it and fixed some of the other issues that I had, especially visually. Like Seventh Saga it has these cool like over-the-shoulder battle mechanics and stuff that look cool, but the actual overworld graphics are pretty blah. They're pretty uninspired, but Mystic Arc looks really nice. All right, so okay, here we go. So that unit had 4 characters: Madolite, Barkley, Anastasia, Ekaterina. So 2 wizards, heavy armor, and palace armor. Yeah, I mean, Seventh Saga, I got turned off by the everybody's leveling up. I got turned off by the difficulty. I borrowed it from a friend, a cart from a friend, and couldn't make it past the first battle, and just gave the cart back. Couldn't be bothered with it. I only kind of really recently figured out that the difficulty and the grinding was added to the North American version of the game, and the Japanese version, maybe the European version, I'm not too sure on that, but the Japanese version is quite a bit more forgiving in terms of like grinding and difficulty. And there's actually a patch now that you can go back and kind of reset the balance. And I feel like if you had that version of the game, Seventh Saga actually has a lot of kind of interesting things to add to the experience. Speaking of difficulty, that first battle didn't seem too difficult in Bahamut Lagoon. I don't know what the game's reputation is in terms of difficulty, but it felt like there was a lot going on, a lot of different skills. I felt like I just kind of brute forced my way through that battle without really like digging into the the systems or understanding like the strength of my party or anything, but I'm sure that'll come later. Okay, so despite me having protected the gates against the invading army, they still got in through a back door. They're going after King Kana. So King Kana and Kana Castle must be... I guess they're on our side. I thought we were attacking them. Haven't been paying attention to the story enough, apparently. Okay. That is a really slow walking speed. Run? No? Stop Madolite. Was it Madolite on my team? Uh-oh. I love that the princess's name is Yo-Yo. She's got kind of a Celis vibe going on with the blonde hair and the green outfit. Celis is one of my favorite characters, but Yo-Yo seems not the same type of character, that's for sure. The music in general has been a big highlight in the game so far, I would say. Lots of kind of depth and range. This is a great kind of straightforward traditional Japanese RPG song. But there's also, been a lot of variety in the battle theme and stuff, which is always nice. Okay, in every age, one person is chosen, and such people become known as heroes. So Southar is trying to get the power of the divine dragon, Bahamut. Okay. So I'm getting the sense that most of the plot in the game is probably going to revolve around, waking and attaining the power of the divine dragons, probably before Southnark, and kind of raise Bahamut's power and take over the world. Yeah, I like games that kind of start off hot like this too and throw you right in. Square Enix during this time was pretty keen on that with games like Final Fantasy-4, like putting you right kind of in the middle of that that action. Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. Final Fantasy-4 and Final Fantasy-6 kind of throw you right into conflict. 5 and Chrono Trigger are sort of the opposite. 5 does have sort of like, it has the meteor crashing early on, and that kind of provides that inciting incident, but it's also, you know, you're also thrown into kind of a more traditional role as just, you know, a kid who gets caught up in something rather than, you know, Terra or Cecil kind of being part of a larger story. And Chrono Trigger was, you know, very kind of lackadaisical in the way that it starts. You just wake up and then wander around until you figure out what to do. Sig and Densetsu 3, Trials of Mana, does a pretty good job of kind of rolling you into its various different stories. Some are sort of like starting off the bat a bit more than others, but you still, in about, you know, the course of 45 minutes, you go through a pretty intense period of the story, and I think that's a good example as well. You've been wherever the sky's taking you on your journey. How many winters have passed ever since the war? Okay, so this is, has there been a time skip? Is that what's going on? Black and white usually tells me that we're kind of like recollecting something, so I'm not really sure. Our motherland of Kana is no more. The Grand Velos Empire has united the world. Nowadays, people talk of the war as if it was nothing more than something that happened in the past. The rebel army that came together to do the will of the late King Kana exists in name only. Nobody has the spirit to fight back, not without you. All right, man. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for coming by. I'm going to wrap up this session in about 10 minutes or so. So I appreciate everybody that came by to check it out with me. This one's a bit of a slower burn, story heavy, and kind of slower gameplay. I don't feel like we made a ton of progress over the course of this play session, but that's also what I expected with a strategy RPG like this. Okay, we were reading a letter. So it sounds like the war happened, Kana fell, the Grand Velos Empire won, united the world kind of under its control, and now BU has sort of disappeared, and the world kind of needs a hero to break out. I always like stories of kind of rebellion, and raising up against, you know, the Empire. So I'm into that. So it's kind of cool. It looks like the world is built. It's kind of like Zeal from Chrono Trigger, in that the world is sort of a series of islands floating high up in the sky, which, you know, lends itself well to the dragon motif. So I don't think I actually knew that about Bahamut Lagoon. We're just learning a little bit about what happened after the year. It looks like BU and others from that rebel army have sort of, you know, holed up somewhere in a small community. I'm curious to see now. We're getting some story. I'm wondering if I'm going to get to actually run around in this village, which would be kind of cool. Okay, Tycho, the commander of the Knights of Maharo. Sendak, an old unmarried summoner. Sendak is the one that wrote the letter we just read. Okay. Madalite, a knight of Kana, and a Virgo with a blood type of... Oh, okay. Important information. Usually they save that for the game manual, but here we are. There's a lot of characters in this game to kick things off. A lot of names to remember. In terms of the actual, you know, fan translation and the translation work, I feel like so far the script has been super clean, like nicely written, not over the top, not full of like flourishes. that a lot of, especially older fan translations, tend to have. I'm generally a fan of like localization over like pure like just straight translation. In terms of like, you know, taking the spirit of, you know, what the story is or what the developers and writers meant from it, and localizing that in a way that makes sense for the new audience. I feel like this translation's, you know, like it seems clean. It doesn't seem like it's getting in the way of itself. So it's kind of finding that nice middle ground between, you know, being overtly molded by its writers and being too stringently connected and adherent to the original Japanese. It looks like we want to try to save Princess Yo-Yo so that presumably we can kind of reinstate the kingdom that fell. We got okay. I found his treasure. It's tightly sealed. Will I open it? Heck yeah. Princess Yo-Yo memories. Okay. I figured out how to run. Earlier I was commenting on the slow walk speed. Figured out how to run. You press X or Y, which is a weird button to run with. But like I don't know why it's not B. But that's sort of a small. Yeah, see, I can run around. I hold Y. But B doesn't do anything. It's weird. So we're in a memory right now, and again, we're getting like we've gotten a lot of music right off the bat, which I'm really impressed with. Really kind of sophisticated music, nice instrumentation, good sampling, to go with just like, you know, nicely written traditional Japanese RPG music. The kind of leaps and bounds that Square Enix made on the Super Nintendo is just like amazing. If you go back and look at like their earliest work, like Final Fantasy IV, compared to a game like this or a game like Trials of Mana, just the level of like the fidelity has just skyrockets over the course of the system's lifespan. You see it again on the PlayStation when Final Fantasy VII uses, you know, basically uses MIDI instrumentation before Sakaguchi finally kind of understands how to utilize the storage space that CDs afford. And so the quality of the actual like music in Final Fantasy VII versus Final Fantasy IX is night and day. Even if Final Fantasy VII has well-written music, the performance through just kind of MIDI technology, it wasn't great. I don't know if it was MIDI on the PlayStation, but the chip tunes, I guess. Church of Memories, do you know why they call it that? I wonder why. Could you explain? I know, but could you tell me why? Beautiful, isn't it? People in love coming here, just the two of them. Their futures tied together forever. Would you like to go in together with me? I would. Yes, let's go. So earlier I wondered if I could run around that little village, and it does look like I was able to, but it also seems like the village was maybe just one screen, so it's not like a full-on village necessarily where I'm going to be going to weapon stores, armor stores, item stores, inns, that kind of stuff. So I don't know how much of this decision, these comments that I'm choosing, answers I'm choosing, actually impact the game, whether there's a morality system like an Ogre Battle or Tactics Ogre, or if it's just sort of cosmetic. I'm not sure how the game's built. Really nice pixel work, like pixel artwork on some of these backgrounds as well. Okay, so we're back here. I wonder, before I get going, I just want to see. So there's no like menu. There's like I'm pressing all the buttons on my controller. Nothing that I can like access right now. I can't even seem to save the game, which is kind of weird. But I think this is probably a good place to wrap up. Let's see what they have to say. Yeah, I think the tile sets from Bahamut Lagoon and Final Fantasy VI would mix together really nicely. They have very similar palettes. They have very similar kind of texture and tone as well. And so I think that would absolutely work to kind of mesh together, kind of like a comfortable feeling for an RPG Maker game. So BU is trying to get the Dragon Squad back together again. So they need to gather some dragons, and to do that, they decided to retake the flagship of Kana. Yeah, I know. I like a lot of these elements and a lot of the tile sets look very similar to Final Fantasy VI, and I'd be curious to look at them side by side or layered on top of each other to see if there is like some reusing of assets, or if it's just, you know, like kind of a consistent artistic methodology that they used, or style. I don't think there's much crossover between Final Fantasy and the team that actually made Bahamut Lagoon. I'd have to go look at the credits list, but I think the aesthetics are just sort of like, you know, that's where Square Enix was at the time, and that's how they kind of got the most out of the Super Nintendo. Because I do feel like Square's aesthetic changed a lot once they got away from kind of the tile-based pixel art that they kind of perfected on the Super Nintendo. Like their PlayStation output is very different. I would say Xenogears is maybe the game that looks the most like a Super Nintendo. Their Super Nintendo offerings to me. All right, so we're back to running around, and it looks like we're about to go off onto the next mission. So I think that's probably where I'm going to wrap up this this play session. I have a lot to write about, a lot to think about. I'm actually like a lot of the games I play for Late to the Party, like I intend to get back to at some point, especially the ones I've enjoyed. But I think Bahamut Lagoon is a game I'm actually going to, you know, give a good effort to. I just got an FX Pack Pro for my Super Nintendo, which is a Super Nintendo cartridge that takes an SD card, and you can play ROMs and fan translations, fan hacks right on your Super Nintendo on original hardware. And I've been looking for a game to like really kind of test that out, and I think this might be the one. I've been impressed with what I've seen so far. It's gorgeous visually. The music is gorgeous as well. And also from just like a gameplay perspective, it seems like a really solid, you know, strategy RPG with, you know, kind of more traditional Japanese RPG structural elements holding it together. So I think that could be really cool. Thanks everybody for joining me today. This has been Bahamut Lagoon. I've been playing the brand new fan translation from Nier. Really impressed with it. I'm going to post the link one more time in chat. This is to an article that I did about this fan translation, about Nier and the work that he has done over the course of like 25 years, chasing after this game, trying to bring over like the most perfect fan like translation localization for the game as possible, and he feels like he's done it now. I'm really impressed. I hope you are too. I appreciate you coming by. If you like this and aren't already subscribed, check out aiden.substack.com for my newsletter, Astrolabe. It's a kind of geek fandom newsletter. I talk about retro video games. I talk about science fiction fantasy books, general kind of geek fandom stuff, writing, everything that interests me. You can sign up completely for free, aiden.substack.com. I also archive all of my streams here on YouTube as well, because they disappear off Twitch right away. And you can find that at youtube.com/aidenmoher. You can find my website at aidenmoher.com. You can also find me on Twitter and all over the place on social media at A Dribble of Ink, ADRIBBLEOFINK, A Dribble of Ink, same as my Twitch channel. If you enjoyed this stream, come on over, say hi, let me know, share it with friends, subscribe to Twitch, subscribe to YouTube, subscribe to Astrolabe, And thanks for joining me. I can't wait to write about this. I can't wait for the next stream. Keep an eye on my Twitter to get a chance to vote for that game in the next Late to the Party column. Okay, thanks so much. Bye, everybody.